Hello everyone and welcome to another Commander Tactics Deck Tech. My name is Pope. A quick reminder that if you love the Commander format as much as we do and want to get more involved with our little community, we now have a Discord dedicated to all things Magic. From helping brew decks to discussing upcoming sets, we would absolutely love to have you join us, and you can find a link for that down in the description below. But now let's dive in, taking a look at the leader of the combo-tastic arsenal, that is the Thopter Mom herself, Breya Etherium Shaper. Breya is a 4/4 legendary artifact creature human that costs white, blue, black, red, and reads, when Breya Etherium Shaper enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Then you can pay 2 and sacrifice 2 artifacts to choose one of the following. Either deal 3 damage to a target player or planeswalker, target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, or you gain 5 life. Thanks to all the amazing reprints coming our way from Double Masters, this Breya deck got so much help in the reprint category. It makes this very accessible to do very powerful things for a great budget. Breya as a commander is just absolutely insane. Her activated abilities are great to fix whatever problems may arise on the board, and it's important to note that it doesn't require us to tap Breya to activate, which means we can then use this ability as long as we have the mana and artifacts available to do so. The focus of this deck is very straightforward. We have a slew of combos to choose from, and we'll try to get the win con as fast as possible. This is not a dirtily deck, it's not a battle cruiser deck. This is a very competitive 7-8 deck, gonna push the limits. And a big warning to anyone who is interested in Breya decks in general, Breya is somewhat of a boogeyman because of how powerful she can be. When you sit down at a table, you can most likely expect some groans and also be assessed as one of the biggest threats pre-game. This deck does intend to win using infinite loops, so if that is something your playgroup discourages, then this deck definitely isn't for you. And we are going to make that happen through a few simple strategies. Number one, and most important part of this deck, is our ramp and reduction spells. Since we aren't in green, our ramp will come entirely in the form of mana rocks, which happens to synergize very, very well with our commander. Then we stay true to the mission of our deck by bringing more spells that are going to enable us to get the spells we need to generate tokens, mana, or resources, which will allow us to get the payoffs, which and then will give us our combos. There are many different ways you can combo different pieces together in this deck, but we'll take a look in the deck tech at a handful to give you an idea just of what exactly Breya can do. And the best part about this deck is that it comes in under $200. For a super competitive fast deck, $200 is a very great entry point. But enough of the pre-game, let's dive in now, taking a look at all of the ramp and reduction spells that we're going to be casting to help reach our combos later on. And first and foremost, we have the Signets. We're running 5 of the Signets. They're going to help us color fix and make sure we have the right mana when we need it. It's important to note that all the mana rocks are helpful because if we do need to sacrifice them with Breya, we can. Along with the Signets, we do have 3 Talismans coming in at under $2 a piece. Great ramp, again, going to help us color fix if we need to, but also can tap for colorless. And then we move in to our mana reducers. If we can get enough mana reduction online, we can just start chucking out artifact spells for absolute free and get tons of value that way. But we have Etherium, Sculptor, Foundry Inspector, and Ugin the Ineffable. Etherium Sculptor and Foundry Inspector both going to reduce the cost of artifacts we cast by 1, and then Ugin the Ineffable does cost 6, so a little costly, but says colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. That 2 cost mana reduction will come in big help if we get this late game and we want to just start churning out our artifacts. And then the last 2 spells I did want to talk about in this category, not necessarily ramp or reduction, but more so sack outlets that are going to generate us tons of mana. That's Krark Clan Ironworks and Ashnod's Altar. Krark Clan Ironworks says you can sack an artifact to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool, or Ashnod's Altar, sacrifice a creature to add 2 generic to your mana pool. Same effect, one with artifacts and one with creatures. In conjunction, these are absolute mega combo pieces that will enable us to win the game and can also allow us to get to big spells much quicker. Moving on, let's take a look at the spells we're going to be using to generate the mana, get the tokens we need, and of course reach our combo pieces as fast as possible, kicking things off with 3 token generators in Thopter Spy Network, Efficient Construction, and Mirrodin Besieged. Thopter Spy Network doing a lot of work at the beginning of our upkeep. If we control an artifact, which we almost always will, we get to create a 1/1 Thopter artifact creature token, and then whenever one or more artifact creatures we control deal combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. So not only is Spy Network going to allow us to generate tokens, but it also is going to enable us to draw up to 3 additional cards each combat phase. Then we have Efficient Construction, another enchantment. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So this means that every time we cast those cheap artifacts, we are going to get more tokens, which then we can sack either to the altar or Krark Clan or to Breya herself, enabling us to reach big mana quick. It's also important to note that these Thopter tokens that we have are going to be important pieces for our infinite combos that we're going to talk about later. And then our last enchantment we're going to talk about here, Mirrodin Besieged, costing only 2 and a blue. Whenever ETBs, you get to choose a mode, either Mirren or Phyrexian. And if we choose Mirren, it says whenever we cast an artifact spell, we're going to create a 1/1 Mirror token. Or Phyrexian says at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then if there are 15 or more artifacts in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. We are almost always going to choose Mirren, but if the off chance that we get this late game and we're maybe in a one-on-one situation, maybe we can play Phyrexian and just win the game on the spot. Next, we have 3 Planeswalkers that are going to help us get the job done in Saheeli the Gifted, Saheeli Sublime Artificer, and Daretti Scrap Savant. One thing I love about all 3 of these Planeswalkers is they have some absolutely amazing synergies with this deck and can be very, very powerful, and are all less than $1.50, which is just awesome. Saheeli the Gifted, a Planeswalker commander coming out of the 2018 product, says create a 1/1 servo for +1, or we can make our next spell cost way less for 1 less for each artifact we control. And then if we do get the ultimate, we get to create an artifact token that's a copy of every artifact we have. The powerful thing with Saheeli, simply getting create a token is very good, but also reducing the cost of our next spell by the number of artifacts we control is going to allow us to cast spells for free, most likely, and have access to a ton of mana. Then we have the uncommon War the Spark version of Saheeli, Saheeli Sublime Artificer, which says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 servo token. This means with each cast of an artifact, a Planeswalker, instant, or sorcery, we're going to get a 1/1 servo into play. Then for -2, we can make one of our artifacts become a copy of another artifact or creature we control until the end of the turn. This means for a -2, we can have an extra Soul Ring, an extra Basalt Monolith, so many things that really just combo off well with Saheeli. But of course, we can also funnel all those 1/1 servos we're getting into Krark Clan Ironworks or Ashnod's Altar to generate a ton of mana again. And then lastly, we have Daretti Scrap Savant, costing 3 and a red. Says for +2, we can discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. So if we're just looking to get to the cards we need, we can do that with him. But the big thing with Daretti is his -2. Sacrifice an artifact, and if we do, we get to return any target artifact card from our graveyard back to the battlefield. With all these tokens that we're going to have in play, we are going to be able to keep our biggest and best artifacts in play at almost all times with Daretti's -2. And then in the off chance we do get to his ultimate, it says whenever an artifact is put into our graveyard from the battlefield, we get to bring it back to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Next up, we have 2 sorceries going to allow us to return our artifacts from our graveyard to the battlefield in masses with Open the Vaults and Scrap Mastery. Open the Vault says return all artifacts and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Obviously, this does kind of stink because our opponents are going to get all of their stuff, but ideally when we cast Open the Vaults, there's a good chance we're just going to close the game out on the spot. And Scrap Mastery, a similar effect to Living Death, but with artifacts. Each player exiles all artifact cards from their graveyard, then you sacrifice all artifacts in play, and then you put all artifacts they exiled onto the battlefield. So you're essentially swapping your artifacts in play with your artifacts in your graveyard. Again, this does affect everyone at the table, but with a big Scrap Mastery, we will just win the game on the spot. And then lastly, rounding out our team, we have 3 powerful artifact tutor spells all getting reprinted. in double masters, making them extremely affordable. I will mention right here, this is where one spot in the deck you could upgrade easily. Being in all colors besides green, we have access to a ton of tutors, and in this deck, we are only running the cheapest of tutors. So if you are looking to upgrade, that's where you can look. But for this deck, we'll be running Kuldotha Forge Master, Master Transmuter, and Reshape. Kuldotha Forge Master, 5 CMC, artifact creature. We tap it and sack 3 artifacts, but again, we have so many tokens, it's going to be okay. We search our library for any artifact card and put it onto the battlefield. This is extremely powerful, and again, if we can get this ability to activate, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to close games out. Then we have Master Transmuter. This creature, 3 and a blue. For a blue, we can tap the Transmuter to return an artifact we control to our hand. Again, we're going to choose one of our wee puny little tokens, and then we get to put any artifact card from our hand onto the battlefield. Once we've tutored up our best artifact piece, if we have it in hand, we can use Transmuter to get it onto the battlefield for only 1 blue. Then we have Reshape, X blue blue. This sorcery says as an additional cost to cast it, we gotta sacrifice a token. Okay, it actually says you have to sacrifice an artifact, but you get the deal. We're gonna sacrifice one of our tokens. Then we get to search our library for an artifact card with CMC X or less and put it onto the battlefield. So we pay into Reshape however much mana we need to go get the combo piece we need, and then get to put it straight onto the battlefield. All of these spells can be game winners depending on what our board state looks like, and we are going to take a look at the pieces that they can tutor up to win us the game right now by diving into some of the combos this deck will be utilizing. First, we have an oldie but a goodie in the Sword of the Meek Thopter Foundry combo. Both of these spells did get the reprint treatment in double masters, so this combo only costs about $3 to go infinite and just wipe opponents out. The way it works, if you're not familiar with this, we have Sword of the Meek that says whenever a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield under our control, we can return Sword of the Meek from our graveyard to the battlefield, and then we attach it to that creature. And Thopter Foundry says we can sacrifice a non-token artifact for 1 mana. We then create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying and gain 1 life. Whenever we sacrifice Sword of the Meek to Thopter Foundry for the 1 mana, it's going to go to the graveyard, it's going to create a 1/1 and instantly come back attached to that Thopter. Now, a few lines you can run with this combo is with a sack outlet such as Krark Clan Ironworks or Ashnod's Altar. We will be able to generate infinite mana and infinite life gain. By paying 1 mana to sacrifice the sword, we're going to generate the token and bring the sword back into play. We can then sacrifice the token to an altar or the Ironworks, generating 2 mana. Then we can pay 1 mana to repeat the process, netting 1 mana on every cycle and gaining 1 life. While the end result of this combo will not be all opponents dead, it will be infinite life gain, infinite colorless mana, and infinite 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens. Moving on to the next combo, we have a 2-card combo utilizing either Sharding Sphinx or Thopter Assembly and Time Sieve. The end result of this combo that we're going to be utilizing is that we are going to generate infinite extra turns, which of course will allow us to draw our entire deck and have a win con in hand to play. But let's take a look at each of these spells individually. Sharding Sphinx for 4 and double blue is a creature that says whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to create a 1/1 blue Thopter creature token with flying. This means that if we have 5 tokens and they attack and deal 5 damage to an opponent, we generate 5 more tokens. In isolation, this card isn't all that exciting, but in conjunction with Time Sieve, again, it'll help us generate those turns. But also, we have an option in Thopter Assembly, 6 mana as well. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we control no Thopters, then we get to return Thopter Assembly to our hand and create 5 Thopters on the spot. If you haven't noticed yet, 5 is that magic number because our winning piece is Time Sieve for only a blue and a black. We tap it, and then we sacrifice 5 artifacts of any type to take an extra turn after this one. With 5 Thopters in play with Sharding Sphinx and Time Sieve, we can attack, deal 5 damage, generate 5 more Thopters, and then activate Time Sieve. The end result is we're going to create 5 more Thopters after combat and be able to loop the 5 combat damage and Time Sieve turns over and over again. But if we want to use Thopter Assembly, it's even easier. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we have no Thopters in play other than Thopter Assembly, we bounce it to our hand. We create 5 Thopters, then we activate Time Sieve, then we recast Thopter Assembly and wash, rinse, and repeat. Thopter Assembly does allow us to get around having to go to combat or deal damage, so it is a little bit of a safer choice, but Sharding Sphinx can absolutely get us there as well. Again, this isn't going to kill our opponents instantly, but with extra turns, we're going to be able to get to an answer at some point. Moving on to our next combo, we have Nim Death Mantle in conjunction with a creature like Marionette Master or Breya herself with a sack outlet available. For this example, we'll take a look with Marionette Master. What Nim Death Mantle says is that whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, we can pay 4 mana. If we do, we return that creature from the graveyard to the battlefield and then attach Nim Death Mantle to it. The Nim Death Mantle doesn't even have to be equipped prior to it dying. Just at any point, if a creature dies, we can pay 4 mana and bring it back. With Marionette Master, whenever it ETBs, same with Breya, it's going to create us some tokens. If we create 3 tokens thanks to its Fabricate ability, we can then sack the 3 tokens to Ashnod's Altar. We then sack Marionette Master, and we get to pay 4 mana to bring it back. We now have generated 4 colorless mana and can loop that over and over and over and kill our opponents. With Marionette Master, it is a single card combo with Death Mantle. Thanks to its extra ability, this is whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette's power. And then if we are running this combo with Breya, we can then use her additional ability to get there as well. End result of this combo is infinite damage thanks to the creatures with their abilities, infinite colorless mana, infinite death triggers, and infinite ETBs. Moving on to our next combo, we have Zerta the Dawnbreaker, one of the new companions from Ikoria, with Basalt Monolith and then Walking Ballista as our win con. Zerta the Dawnbreaker for 1 Boros says, activated abilities that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce it below 1. And then Basalt Monolith, the mana rock that costs 3 to cast, generates 3, and then we have to pay 3 to untap it. In conjunction with Zerta, Basalt Monolith only costs 1 to untap. This means that we can cast Basalt Monolith, tap it for 3, and untap it for 1. End result, very simple, infinite colorless mana. Then we can funnel that infinite colorless mana wherever need be, but with Walking Ballista we pay XX. It's going to come in with X plus 1 counters, then we can remove a counter to deal 1 damage to any target. So if we make Walking Ballista a 1000, we can then remove those counters and ping our opponents down and win the game. Of course, there are going to be other win cons that we can put the infinite colorless mana into. Walking Ballista is just a quick, easy example. And then the final combo that I did want to talk about in this deck is a cheeky one of my personal favorites, and that is Joyra Weatherlight Captain, Tidespout Tyrant, and our mana rocks. If you're not familiar with each of these dudes, Joyra Weatherlight Captain, an absolute powerhouse in the artifact world, 2 blue-red. Whenever you cast a historic spell, you get to draw a card. Tidespout Tyrant, 5 triple blue, so very expensive to get out. Says whenever you cast a spell, you get to return any target permanent to its owner's hand. Generally, Tidespout Tyrant is used to be pretty degenerate, allowing us to bounce lands of our opponents if we want to. But what we plan to do is loop our mana rocks to be able to draw our entire deck, generate infinite mana, and then win the game. The setup is a little complicated, but what we need is 2 mana rocks that are going to net even mana or better, and then Weatherlight Captain Joyra and Tidespout Tyrant in play. For this example, let's talk about Soul Ring in conjunction with a Talisman. Tap Soul Ring for 2 mana to cast our Talisman. When we cast the Talisman, we get to bounce the Soul Ring back to our hand thanks to Tidespout Tyrant. We'll also get to draw a card off of Joyra. Then we're able to tap our Talisman for a color if we need to, or a colorless mana, recast our Soul Ring, and repeat the process over and over, drawing our entire deck. Now the end result with that loop is simply drawing our entire deck, so if we want to actually generate mana, we need a mana reducer or another mana rock that is going to be a net positive gain. What I mean by net positive is something like Basalt Monolith and Soul Ring. Casting each of these is going to cost 4 mana, but they are going to generate 5 mana. Looping these 2 will allow us to draw our whole deck and gain 1 mana on each cast. A little convoluted and definitely not the easy to pull off, but if we can get it into play, it is a really fun win condition. But now that we've seen almost all of it, let's dive in now, taking a look at what else we have going on inside the 99. For our removal and control with this deck, we have 12 targeted and board wipe spells, going to help us keep our opponents at bay. Card draw and advantage a little lacking, only 10 spells. We could definitely up that, but we do have many tutors, so those kind of compensate for that. Ramp, we have 14 spells coming in the form of mana, rocks, and reduction, going to help us get to the big mana as fast as possible. And for the power level of this deck, I put it at a solid 7.5. This deck can absolutely compete with the powerful decks, and you can make it a lot better very, very easily. How are we going to win with this deck? Well, as you can imagine, we're going to do it through comboing off. We're going to generate infinite mana, we're going to take infinite extra turns possibly, and then we're going to pump out infinite extra damage. This deck is all about assembling the right pieces, and you can do this in so many different forms and then just close out a game through the combo going off. If you do like this deck and you're considering building it, upgrading it comes in the form of better tutors, better mana rocks, and more efficient combos. So definitely just look into those. You got your mana crypts, you've got your demonic tutors. Add those in and you will be off to the races. But that does bring us to the conclusion of this very powerful artifact-focused combo deck. Breya is scary. She can do a lot of insane things, and players all over the Magic community know this. That is why she is one of the most played commanders of all time. But now that you've seen the entire deck and how we're going to do it, let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? Is this something that appeals to you? Are you looking to get in and play with the big hitters at a budget price? If so, this deck is absolutely a great place to start. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. What would you add? What would you take out? Maybe there's some combos I didn't talk about that you think should be in here. The deck list for this can also be found down in the description of this video. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button. Let us know. Also, if you want to know when our next video goes live, you can hit that subscribe button and maybe even click that bell. We do have a Patreon available if you want to go the extra mile to support the channel, and that's Commander Tactics. You can find us on Twitter at EDH Tactics, and again, hop in that Discord to get involved with us. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you for the next one.